Based on.
Recording is on.
Sorry, just a minute.
Yeah. Let's see. So we have Mike's presentation. We've got some time afterwards for some Q&A. And then after that, Mike, you're absolutely welcome to join us. But everyone here is welcome to go to the pub. There's a pub that's right around the corner. So we can go have some drinks afterwards.
You might even have some instructions on that machine somewhere.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all set up. So yeah, I'll, with nothing else, I'll start. I'll introduce Mike. So Mike Herchel, as you may know, is a front-end developer working mostly with Drupal-based sites. He's one of my favorite Drupal speakers. Hope that doesn't embarrass you, Mike, but I've seen Mike speak twice, and yeah, he's very good. He contributes to open source projects, which includes being the lead developer and maintaining of the new default theme for Drupal core, Olivero, as well as being a maintainer for the entirety of Drupal core's CSS. He's a senior front-end web developer at Agilana. I might have mispronounced that, Mike. Where he's working on replatforming the U.S. federal court systems. He's involved with local web dev communities in Florida, organizes Meetup, a bar camp, and also the annual Florida Drupal Camp conference. Outside of computers, he's a father, nature appreciator, has a kick-ass vintage Celestron orange tube C8 telescope, through which he looks at the clouds of Jupiter and rings of Saturn, which I mentioned because it's really cool, but having that sort of celestial reference seems like the perfect person to talk to us about Starshot. So Mike, I will hand things over to you, sir.
Sure. I am getting an echo. Is there a way that we could, I don't know, like turn off the audio or do something?
You can turn this off?
You can try. Yes. All right. I hope y'all can still see me. I am going to share a screen. Can y'all see the screen? I'm guessing yes. I can't hear you now, so just because of the echo, but I can see the guy in the street sounds shirt. Anyway, so yeah.
Just confirming, Mike, we can hear you.
Cool. All right, so I gave a session at Evolve Drupal just on Friday, so I didn't change the slides around, so y'all are gonna have to deal with the slides. The session was a combination overview and panel. So we're gonna kind of tweak it up a little bit, and we can my thought is at the end we can just kind of have like an open Q&A and stuff and answer some questions. So anyway, it's called the Future of Site Building, a panel on Starshot, but it's not really a panel, it's just me. This is me right there. I'm a senior front-end dev at Agilana. This is the coolest picture I have right here. It's me on a motorcycle and with a chainsaw. The fire in the background is photoshopped in. So in addition to everything said before, I also just found out on Thursday I am going to be on the Starshot Advisory Council, which sounds super cool. There was a meeting which I was on my flight, so I totally missed it, but I did watch the recording, and I'm not quite sure what all I'm gonna do yet, but we'll see. So I already talked about my intro. I'm going to talk about what Starshot is. I'm going to walk through the features, technology, how to help, and then we can just do some Q&A stuff. So show of hands, from what I can see, who here has like actually heard of Starshot or maybe like watched Dries Know and stuff like that? All right, I'm seeing like everybody, so that's cool. Has anyone here been watching any of the videos that they've been releasing? Or that there's been some live Zooms, and I'm going to show you how all to watch those, and because it's like really interesting. Like if you're interested in something specific, you can just watch a Zoom on that, and it'll tell you how to help. I have seen some of them. I have not seen all of them because unfortunately I have to do work too on occasion. So, and there's meetings and stuff. So the first thing, and I'm hoping y'all, if you can just like release the mute so I can hear everybody. But I want to hear what everyone thinks Drupal's primary strength is. Just like yell it out or something.
Go for it again. Digby.
APIs.
APIs,
Strong content architecture.
strong content architecture. All right, that's good enough.
There are some good editing facilities these days. They're all layout builders and WYSIWYG and stuff.
Yeah.
Low-level customizations.
Yeah.
What was that last one?
It's low-level customizations.
Low-level
Customization.
customization.
Okay, mute again so I can talk. Thank you. So I'm going to argue it's all that, but the ability to achieve that without code, which a lot of people called site building. The new term is low code, no code, So I can tell you, and this is my personal anecdote, like my personal experience. When I got into Drupal, I was like flabbergasted. I could do all this crazy stuff. I can create my custom content types back when CCK was around and create custom views and output everything. And I didn't have to write any type of SQL. I didn't have to I barely had to do any PHP, and it was awesome. And Drupal allows you to achieve all that complex data, views, workflow, all that stuff without code until a certain point. There's a certain point where you need some functionality, and that what I like about Starshot is it it's kind of taken us back to that, So the mission statement, I'm going to read it out loud. We're going to talk about what Drupal CMS is in a second right here. But Drupal CMS is a fast-moving open source product that enables site builders without Drupal experience to easily create a new Drupal site and extend with prepackaged recipes, all using the browser. So a really cool part about this is just like all using your browser, And what this gives people is it gives us the ability to create a faster starting point, to get farther along. And we'll talk a little bit about that right here. So Drupal Starshot is kind of a meta initiative. It encompasses a number of other initiatives, some of which have pre-existed Starshot, things like automatic update, project browser, and some that are very much part of Starshot, including experience builder and recipes. In addition to that, we have things like default content, which is going to be part of recipes, default configuration. We're going to talk about what Drupal CMS is, and that's key contributed modules. And I'm hoping beyond hope that we also have some improved documentation. So Drupal CMS is kind of interesting. Like everybody refers to Drupal core as a CMS, and it is. It's also a framework, right? But whenever you download Drupal, you always have to download things like meta tag, path auto, and there's probably 3 or 4 other modules that go with like every single Drupal site. And then there's like a lot of nice to haves. Maybe like if you're using like the Gen admin theme, or you're using cool modules like type tray that kind of improve the ad content experience. So on Drupal.org, we're going to market Drupal CMS heavily, and it's going to be marketed for everybody. So like if you're starting off with Drupal, you're going to use Drupal CMS, and that'll have, in addition to Drupal core, it will have things like path auto, meta tag, and a number of modules still to be determined. Drupal core will be marketed as a framework to build your own content management system. Drupal core is not going anywhere. It's still called Drupal core, and it's still expected to be used a lot, especially by like a lot of like larger enterprises, agencies, et cetera, that are kind of building on top of that, that might have their own installation profiles on top of that. But like for the consumer level, Drupal CMS is where we're going to point people. And when you think of this, like it kind of makes a lot of sense, because pulling down a module like Path Auto is kind of complicated if you've never done it before. First of all, you need to identify the problem, like, so you install Drupal and then you see that all your URLs are node 1, 2, 3, and you're like, what the hell, Some people might not even know that's a problem. Some people might think that's just fine and dandy, but they might not know. And then you have to think about, like, well, what do I have to do this? You look through your settings, you look through your configuration. Do I need to check a box? And then you can't figure it out, so maybe you Google it, you get pointed to Path Auto. And then after you do Path Auto, well, all right, well, I need to install it. How do you currently install Path Auto? Well, you do it with Composer. So I have to have a local running. I might not have a local running. I might just be like playing around on Pantheon or Platform or something, So I have to have a local running. Then I have to do my commit and get all that stuff up. It's kind of a pain in the butt. Drupal CMS is going to skip a lot of that. Something that's like really interesting about Drupal CMS is it's intended to start recompeting against that smaller to mid-market sites that Drupal kind of seeded. Like back into Drupal 6, Drupal 7 days, a lot of smaller websites were based on Drupal. Hold on one second. And but nowadays, your default is maybe WordPress, and if you're not using WordPress, you could use different hosted solutions like Squarespace or Wix or something like that. But you think about, like, why can't Drupal compete with this? And to tell you the truth, like, the reason that we can't compete is because it's hard to get started. It's hard to get started. It's hard to do everything. It's hard to theme it, and this is where Starshot is trying to alleviate it. It's also hard to keep it updated, and this is where automatic updates is gonna come into play here. So automatic updates is kind of what you think it does. It's exactly what you think it is, as a matter of fact. It's intended to lower that total cost of ownership. It's secure. It's more secure than other content management systems out there. We do code signing via this implementation of a framework called the Update Framework. And this has been there's ongoing work with it, but my understanding is the majority of this is completed. It's been a combination of work. A lot of it has been done by the Drupal Association. I think some of it there's been grants and stuff. During the update process, it actually it does the updates in a separate location, runs some general tests on those to make sure that, hey, is it still able to query the database? Hey, is it doing X, Y, Z? And if successful, it'll then override it. As of now, automatic updates is for core, but that's changing. These are some screenshots that were shot over to me a couple of days ago. So you can kind of see, like, there's a button to do updates, but you'll also be able to run this in unattended mode. And there's also a tab here to update your extensions, which is pretty cool. For those that want to help out on this, you can find more at the URL right there, where Drupal.org's about Starshot initiatives automatic update. All of these URLs I'm going to tell you right here, you can find on Drupal.org/Starshot, and then it'll redirect, and then I'll give you links to everything, and I'll show that URL in a little bit, or that page in a little bit. There's a roadmap issue right there, and then there's a Slack channel called Auto Updates, and hopefully y'all are in Drupal Slack. Very closely coupled to automatic updates is a module called Project Browser. Both automatic updates and Project Browser are eventually going to make it into Drupal core, not just Drupal CMS. So Project Browser is basically a user interface for a composer, and it's a lot nicer. Like, if you go to Drupal.org right now and you want to search for a module or search for something, I don't know if you've all have done this lately. It's kind of atrocious. You have to filter and search, and sometimes when you're sorting by most installed, it still shows ctools, even though ctools is not as relevant as it used to be because everybody had it installed for D7. This is not necessarily the user interface that we want. We want to give people the ability to do searches, to somehow be able to evaluate the modules. We want to give the people to ability to filter these modules, and just functionality like this is kind of expected in a modern content management system, and this is something that we're working on. That we're going to get. So this does require a writable file system, and yet you all probably know that writable file systems typically don't exist on like a modern Drupal host, at least not in production, but on lower environments, you can totally have a writable file system. And you can also install stuff locally via project browser, and then commit your composer JSON and composer.lock files and upload them that way. Project browser will modify your composer JSON and composer lock files. It does the exact same thing as composer, but it's just a user interface for a composer that also allows you to install and browse and things like that. Project Browser will also be integrated with recipes, which is exciting. I'm going to talk a lot about recipes in a second here. So as with the other, you can find more about this at the URL right there. I can share these slides with you afterwards, but you can find all this stuff at drupal.org/starshot. There's a roadmap issue, and then there's a project browser, project-browser channel in Drupal Slack. So the thing that I'm probably the most excited about is Experience Builder. So show of hands here, who here uses Layout Builder? Anybody? I got 2. Okay, what about paragraphs for layout? 3? Yeah, 4? Yeah, 5? Yeah. Yeah, is anybody just like hard code crap with the block system and all that type of stuff still? Because I do that sometimes. Yeah, all right, well, yeah. So Experience Builder is basically a next generation layout builder that doesn't suck. So if y'all have used layout builder was really exciting when it first came out. I think it came out in Drupal 8.5, and it came out and it had all this new capability. You could kind of see your content as it was put in the page. It was a little rough, and usability wasn't quite great. After it came out, I kind of expected work to continue, but honestly, work stopped. And this layout builder's been part of core, and it's been kind of what I consider to be in a half-baked state. In order to get layout builder user-friendly, there's a number of different modules, like things like Layout Builder Plus and Layout Builder Styles, and there's probably about 20 other ones. And all these modules are filling a void that, like basically filling a failure of Drupal core. So Experience Builder is going to be a complete rewrite on this. Experience Builder enables site builders without Drupal experience to easily build and theme their entire website using the browser without the need to write code beyond basic HTML, CSS, and some templating. So this is going to be interesting right here because it says the entire website. I'm a little skeptical of this, right? Like, how are you going to do a menu system unless you're going to make it accessible and stuff like that? But I am really excited about being able to build whole pages and being able to mix structured content and unstructured content in a very user-friendly way. Experience Builder will also enable content creators to compose content on any part of the page without relying on developers. So this is kind of cool. So think about like, well, we can maybe use it on the footer, we can maybe use it in the header and things like that. So the person who is taking the the people who are taking the lead on this include Lori Escala, which Lori has a new last name, I think, Timely, and Wim Lears, who are both developers at Acquia. Lori did a whole bunch of research. He researched both open source and proprietary layout builders or page builders, looked at what WordPress does, including things like Elementor and Gutenberg. There were serious conversations about pulling in Gutenberg into Drupal core to replace things like layout builder. But we settled on having to do experience builder for a lot of like basically for developer experience. Building stuff in Gutenberg, I don't know if anyone here has used Gutenberg, can be a little complicated. You have to have the component twice. You have to have it in JavaScript and you have to have it in Twig. And it can be a little daunting. I have a couple screenshots right here. So these are some Figma mockups. These are just mockups. Things will undoubtedly change. But you can kind of see here, like, there's been some real thoughts on how we're going to fit in things like structured content, unstructured content, global blocks, components, reuse content or recompose content, and things like that. So, you know, this is the type of thing that marketers want, and we want to assemble a page like this and just have it work. We want a non-developer to be able to do that, and we want to give them the appropriate level of shoot yourself in the footness, you know, where you can be flexible but you can't completely wipe everything out or something like that. And that's going to be kind of a fine line. That might be the type of thing that's configurable at the end. There was a session on this earlier today. Lori gave a session on Zoom, and I watched about half of it. I'm going to watch the rest of it as soon as it gets published. But you can find all those videos at the URL up there. Once again, you can go to drupal.org/starshot. The meeting was today. There's a Kanban board that they're using. They're using Kanban with that, and there's also a Slack channel right there. So recipes is a set of APIs, and recipes is it's kind of like the glue that holds everything together for Drupal CMS. So what are recipes? I probably need to add a little question mark in here, right? There we go. What are recipes? Well, they're a successor to installation profiles. So show of hands, once again, who here has used installation profiles? All right, show of hands, who here likes how the installation profiles lock you in? Nobody. Yeah, installation profiles are kind of a pain in the ass. They lock you in. If they don't get updated, it's very difficult to update your site. The modules and themes with installation profiles are in their particular directory, in that installation profile directory. So recipes are the successor to installation profiles, but installation profiles are not being deprecated. They're still going to exist because there are a number of existing installation profiles that are pretty popular that we can't just get rid of. Things like Thunder, Content, or Commerce Kickstart, and things like that. The hope is, though, that the maintainers of those will migrate those to recipes. Maybe in the future we can get rid of installation profiles, but that's not even being talked about at this point. So recipes are pieces of functionality that can have dependencies on modules, themes, or other recipes. So like your recipe, you can have a recipe, let's say like for a barber shop, and that can call another recipe that is an event recipe or something like that. It can also pull in themes and modules. The recipes are just bundles of configuration and default content. They do exactly the same thing that you can do by site building, but by doing configuration and stuff. With the addition of having some content in there. Recipes are applied; they're not installed. You can take a snap. There's an API to do a snapshot of your configuration, so you can revert, but you cannot uninstall a recipe. Your Drupal also does not keep a list of which recipes are installed or have been used or anything like that. That might change a little bit with things like Project Browser, because with Project Browser, you might want to know that, hey, you have done this before. Recipes are also easy to share, and they don't lock the sites in. So, like, if you install a recipe and it pulls in modules, well, it's just pulling in the module via Composer, and it's putting it in the modules directory. It's not doing anything weird. Recipes can install default content, which to me is great. And right now, the state of recipes are they're applied with a script, but they're soon going to be integrated with Project Browser. So there are some things that recipes specifically cannot do. Recipes do not contain their own code. Like if you have some code, you have to have a module that run those codes. You do not upgrade recipes. You know, like if you have a recipe that installs a module, yada yada, that does this, and then there's a later version of the recipe that maybe has a different module, you don't upgrade to it. You can just you have to move that yourself. And recipes, I can't delete or uninstall anything. So recipes are already in Drupal core. 10.3 is, I think, going to be released on the 20th. When is that? That's Thursday, right? So Drupal 10.3 is supposed to come out on Thursday. We'll see if it actually does. Recipes has an API that's already there. The API is marked as experimental, but there's nothing like within code, I think, that says it's experimental, but it's technically experimental. And there are some recipes that are added to core. I don't know exactly what's there, but there are some recipes that just verify that everything's working right. But what's really interesting is that with Drupal CMS, we want to have recipes. We want to give the option to apply recipes during the installation process. You know, so like if you're going through that installer, you have an option for, like, say, like a blank, you know, minimal. You have an option for corporate, or you have an option for magazine. You know, I would love it if there was an option to, like, reach out on the web, and let's say I want to do a barbershop, and I just type in barbershop, and it comes up with a bunch of stuff, you know, and I can select one, hit the install button, and play around with it. And it has default content, has maybe some event scheduling stuff, and pictures of people's haircuts. I don't know. So you of course can install more than one recipe, and I'll give you these options during the installation. Of course, you can go back in. You can go in and install more within Project Browser. What's listed in here is still to be determined. I think, like, right now, of course, we're going to talk about like having a blog or having a contact form recipe and stuff like that. Recipes are kind of cool. You know, I am of the opinion that if Drupal migrated to like this recipe paradigm instead of doing installation profiles, if we did this 10 years ago, I think our market share would be a lot higher. So once again, you can find more about the initiative at the URL above. There's a roadmap right there, and there's also Jim Birch, who is one of the leads of the Recipes Initiative, wrote a great blog post right there at canopy.com. And it's called The Comprehensive Guide to Drupal Recipes. That YouTube video about recipes is all on that top URL up there. And of course, there's a recipes channel in Drupal Slack. So that's the gist of it. Some of the topics that we could talk about here, and I don't know how this is going to work with the echo that I was getting, but like one of the things that I'm really excited about is like getting back to these smaller sites. And like I can tell you, I personally like I work at a large agency that does like federal websites in the US. Like right now we're redoing all the websites for the federal US court system, you know. Um, how will this help us? I can tell you that recipes would help out immediately. You know, like we have to, like we're redoing 300 websites, and it would be really cool to be able to have default content without having to jump through so many hoops, uh, or give the ability for these courts to install their own pre-approved features. You know, like let's say they want a feature for some type of weird contact form or something, we could just give them that, and then they can install it and do some configuration. I think that would be awesome. What I'm really excited about is like when we when we start taking back this small to mid market share of websites, it's going to be this influx of new developers. You know, like when people like a lot of people, including myself, started off making smaller websites. You know, like I started with a sports tailgating website back in the day, and I still manage my buddy's lawn care website on Drupal. We did this back in Drupal 7 on the way. This is managed through Layout Builder. It's now Drupal 10. And Drupal Drupal gives you the, like, if we can be user friendly enough to let people do compose pages, have a very far along starting point, be able to affect the appearance as much as they want to, but still have those strengths that you all talked about earlier. Things like the robust API layer, structured content, you know, the complex workflows, complex permissions, well, not complex, but like robust permission set, and like of course Drupal security is pretty amazing. Like if we can have that, like there's no reason why we can't be kicking all these other content management systems asses, you know. And so I'm really excited about this. um so yeah, any questions or anything else that y'all want to talk about? I can't hear anything, by the way, at this point.
Digby?
Is that now on?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. This is Digby. Hi, how you doing? I read an article or response by Mike Herchel, and he has some perspective which says we may be trying to do things too quickly. Are you familiar with what Mike Herchel's thinking? Or?
Yeah, that's a good question. Mute me one more sec so I can actually talk. Thank you. It's hard to talk when you're getting that echo. I didn't read Mike's blog article, which is too bad because I usually read most of the stuff. We are doing stuff very quickly. The quickest thing that we're doing is Experience Builder, which is going really quickly. Acquia has a huge team dedicated to this. Things like recipes has been like the primary contributor on recipes is Alex Pop, and he has been working on this for about 2 years. And one of the cool things about Alex Pop is he also works on the Thunder distribution. Another person who's been working on it is Adam Globus. I don't even know how to pronounce it. Like his Drupal name is Fina Proxima. He's worked on like the Acquia Lightning distribution. So these developers who are working on recipes have felt the pain. They know where the problems are, and this is thought through. With Experience Builder, Lori Timely, formerly Lori Espila, has done a lot of research, and I don't know if y'all know him. He's a very deliberate person. He likes to, in my opinion, sometimes overly kind of analyze things. But I am of the opinion that we need to move fast. We need to move fast and break things. Drupal core has been too careful, and as we get too careful, we lose opportunities. and because we're losing those opportunities, we're losing market share. Other things like automatic updates, project browser, those have been happening for a while. I wouldn't want to see those sped up. One of the biggest changes is this whole idea of Drupal CMS. Drupal CMS is happening very quickly. The marketing for it is happening very quickly. Like we're going to need to, I hope we can launch a new Drupal.org by the time this launches, but we need to make Drupal seem relevant. We like if you go to like a new, let's say, Contentful, like a competing content management system like Contentful, it looks a lot fresher. It looks nicer. Astro CMS is another one that a lot of people are using. Astro Build. Like this is pretty cool, but if you go to Drupal.org, it kind of looks the same way it looked, maybe 10 years ago. It doesn't look that much different. So there's a lot of pieces here. Like there's marketing, there's experience builder, and then there's these things that have been happening in the past. So as far as I'm concerned, we need to get it done, and if we string it out, there's a chance that it won't get done. Any
Hi, Mike. Yeah, thanks very much for all this. It's really interesting. A lot of things that I wasn't aware of that they're looking at introducing. Recipes, is he still there? Oh, we lost him.
Is it turned on?
I think we might have lost him.
Yeah.
He knew what you were going to ask. He'd run off.
Yeah.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, can hear you fine. Yeah, can you hear us?
Yep.
Yeah. Is it still echoing?
What's that?
Is it still echoing?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No worries.
I don't know how much of me sort of question you caught, but yeah, just say thank you for your presentation. Loads of information there that I wasn't aware of. Recipes is particularly interesting to me because I've been tackling an installation profile on a project for the last about year and a half, and it's a big pain in the ass. You say that you can't delete or uninstall things with recipes. I mean, basically, to what degree does that happen? Or, for example, if you remove a field, there's a basic example from a recipe, would it remove it, or do you have to create like a installation hook to remove unwanted configuration or anything like that?
So my understanding, and I'm not. Yeah, thank you. My understanding, and I might be incorrect with this, is that if you want to delete a field, you're going to need to do that manually. Recipes are not meant to delete fields. Recipes, there is a new API called config actions where you can like take actions depending on different configuration. Like, so for example, you can, you don't have to automatically know what the default theme is or anything. You can say like, if it's the default theme, then do that, or things like that. So to answer your question, I'm not entirely sure. It's a good question, but I would assume you cannot delete fields or anything like that.
I mean, that would be a shame, but it still sounds better than installation profiles, which are horrible.
Yeah. And you can do an update hook or something if you need to in a module.
Hi, Mike. Thanks for that. Really interesting. I got a question about the name. The name, really. When we're an agency and we talk about Drupal CMS all the time, is this not going to confuse people when you're suddenly talking about Drupal CMS being something completely different, much more akin to, I guess, WordPress is the scalp we're after, isn't it? How are we going to unmarket Drupal CMS as being now called Drupal Core?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's going to confuse people. Like, I don't know if there's a way around that. I think like the marketing that I've seen so far is going to be like, we're going to call it Drupal Core, and Drupal Core is a framework to build your own CMS, right? We have been referring for the longest time as Drupal as a CMS. I have not heard it called Drupal CMS, like as a proper noun or anything like that. We've been referring to it as a CMS. So I think that's what the difference is. There's not really, it's a little ambiguous, and I think people are going to get a little confused, but that's why we're here. We're going to need to talk about it. We're going to need to go to Drupal camps. We're going to need to talk to people, and as an agency owner or agency representative or something like that, talk to your clients, say like, listen, Drupal CMS is kind of a starting point. It's a fast starting point. It's going to get you to where you're going a lot quicker in general. But that being said, if you want a framework to build something very custom, at that point, you can start with Drupal Core.
Hi, Mike.
Hi.
I was one of the points I said before the show this evening started. I was talking with Alistair next to me, and I was saying that I specifically think that a reason why we need Starshot is so that when we go into competition with other CMSs, with new customers, we don't give them the chance of saying, saying to those customers, have you tried to use Drupal? God, it's hard to get started. We don't want that to happen, and we want to we want to do away with that. So that's why Starshot's a good idea.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. Thank you for meeting. And like if you look at, like as I said earlier, like if you look at Drupal from new eyes and you try to come into it, it's a little complicated. You know, other content management systems built out their landing, their landing strip, or however you want to refer to that, their on ramp a lot better than we have. You know, I think that our documentation right now is kind of a mess in general. It's hard to figure out what you need, and this is going to be a big step forward.
Yeah, just to follow on that same line, I think that nowadays marketing departments are having a bigger say in a selection for a CMS, whereas in the past it used to be the IT department. Now it's sort of the marketing guys can really say what they want.
Yep. And if you're a marketing person and you see a demo of Experience Builder, at least the way I think Experience Builder will end up, you're gonna be impressed. And I don't know if y'all have played around with like external tool, like other systems tools like Webflow or Elementor or Gutenberg. Like there are good things and bad things about each. Like a lot of people like to point to Gutenberg, but Gutenberg's kind of a pain in the butt sometimes, you know, and Elementor's like all over the place. Webflow seems pretty cool, but it's also like a little complicated too.
Yes, I think it's going to really help build market share.
Yeah, I agree.
Me again. We're talking about marketing departments. I know we're talking about Starshot here, but one of the initiatives that's really exciting me is the marketing initiative, and I think they do go hand in hand a little bit here. You've talked about various CMSs. One of the ones that our agencies started or had looked at about 6 months ago was Sanity, and the videos are very impressive. Similarly with Acquia, their videos are very impressive. I think that's probably what Drupal is lacking. It's very hard to go to a client and go, look at this amazing video, because we don't have those things. And once we do have something which is like amazing to show clients, marketing departments or otherwise, like the Experience Builder, I think that's Drupal almost doing our job for us, because it looks very impressive. At the moment, the website is not impressive. There's no impressive demos. All we can show them is a clunky paragraphs or layout builder type experience, which I guess we've all got our own customized versions for. But tying this whole Starshot, Drupal is easy out of the box thing with the marketing initiative, I think will help agencies or others sell Drupal much more easily. And I'm really excited about all coming together all at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was a comment of the question.
One of the things that I don't know if y'all caught this in like this wireframe, that for this Drupal.org wireframe, when they were talking about Drupal CMS versus Drupal Core, is this launch button right down here for Drupal CMS. And so the question is like, well, what is that launch button going to do? Like currently, if you go to Drupal Core, or you go to Drupal hosting providers, there's like links to Pantheon, Acquia, or maybe some other hosts and stuff like that in there. And that's a pain, because you got to sign up. You maybe even got to give them your credit card information. Like who wants to get on some marketing list for Acquia? Like nobody, you know. This launch button is the current plan for it, and this is once again tentative because it's still a proof of concept, is to load Drupal into browser. So WordPress has this functionality that they built and they open sourced, where they run a complete LAMP stack within WebAssembly within the browser, which is like really, really advanced stuff. So within the browser, you're running WebAssembly, you're running, I don't know, Apache or Nginx, PHP, maybe SQLite or something like that. And you can just get up and running. So there are people right now that are working on this for Drupal. You know, I know Matt Glaman is one of them. He's been working on this. I have no clue what the status is. But the hope is that you hit this launch button, it opens up a new window. You have a little loading thing as you know your WebAssembly does all its configuration. At that point, you just have Drupal. You go through the installation button or the installation process. You can say like, I want to install, you know, this and that recipe, and it comes with default content. You can go into that default content. You can hit the edit button or whatever button that that Starshot or that experience builder will give you. And at that point, you can start screwing around with stuff. Like, how awesome would that be to show your clients? Be like, this is it right here, and there's no one else that can do this. And especially, especially with like Drupal's structured content and security. You know, like when you say like we have this, but we also have like the best security. We also have the best structured content. We're battle tested. You know, Drupal's been around for a long, long time. You know, to me, it makes the choice easier.
Hi, Mike. Gareth here. A couple of things. One is I'm a maintainer for Umami, so it would be great to get Umami involved in this. I've seen a few threads about starting to use recipes for, and we have default content we need for Umami, so there's a lot of crossover there, and it'd be great for, you know, again, here's Drupal CMS populated, so you can see how you should use it and what it's good for, that sort of thing. I mean, another point is, so essentially Drupal CMS, or, you know, a nice Drupal out the box, is a conversation I've been having for about 10 years now. And last time we talked about it, my boss at the time, we almost got laughed out the room. It was you know, no, we don't want to be going after the small fish, the small websites. It's not meant to be for that sort of thing. You know, it's complex. It should be complex. You know, we want to do big things and be the best, which is great. It's what Drupal is, but that's not the way the market's gone or whatever. Has the reception from, you know, everything that's going on around this been positive? You know, lots of people wanting to get involved, or have people kind of, is there still apprehension? Do we still need to convince people? Because it is a good idea. It's long overdue. I think we all know that. But, you know, is there still apprehension? Is it all good?
You know, I haven't heard too much apprehension. The apprehension I've heard about is from people who don't know what it is quite yet. They think it's just like some big marketing gimmick or something like that. For me, like things like Project Browser and automatic updates, those are going to be, you know, modules that you enable or disable. So you can disable those on your large enterprise sites, obviously. I think Experience Builder is one of those things that everybody's going to want to use, you know, if we do it properly. And like, to be fair, like there's the total possibility that we screw it all up, just like we did Layout Builder. I don't think we're gonna, but I mean, until it's done, you don't know, you know. I have high confidence in that. Recipes is going to be useful for everyone. You know, recipes is going to be useful for enterprise sites and people just getting started with Drupal. And I think everybody can agree that Drupal's marketing has not been that great. So, like, once you explain things like that, I think the apprehension is it's really easy to kind of dissipate that. As far as Umami goes, yeah, like I know there's been a lot of work on Umami to get Umami migrating to single directory components, which is going to help out with things like with Experience Builder. Experience Builder will be built on single directory components, or, you know, utilizing those, and it can also create them. And I think it makes, like, I've heard talk about making like this standard installation profile with Drupal recipe based, which to me makes a lot of sense. If we can make standard profile recipe based, Umami recipe based, like, this is cool, because then we could potentially bring in some of Umami's stuff and outside of Umami, you know. know, like that would be awesome. And then you don't have to do like the weird content import that Umami does right now too. So I appreciate you maintaining that and working on that. Thank you.
Me again. I guess a lot of the things that are coming in Starshot are things we've been looking forward to for a long time. Experience Builder, I'm really excited about. But with recipes, I guess for those of us here who work in agencies, I guess we've already sort of put together our own recipes in some fashion, whether they're written down or whether we've got an installation script, whether we've got a composer script, or we just take a clone of the last project we did and do it that way. I guess we've all got our methods. If we're going to be using recipes, how will each recipe avoid treading on another recipe's toes? And I guess you could, like the barber example you could have, a booking system and a separate event system that are using the same modules that are configured slightly differently. Is any thought being put into those sorts of recipes clashing with each other?
Yeah, that's a really good question. To be honest, I don't have a clue. Like I always, I like in the back of my head, like, you know, well, what if a field exists, you know, and you create the field? I would assume there would be something with that in that config actions API where it would just like maybe increment a number onto the field name or something like that, so it doesn't screw it up. Another thing that recipes can do is it can take, well, it cannot yet do, but it will be able to, is to take like user input. So like, let's say you have configuration, but you want to throw in your API key or something like that. It should be able to do that. There's an issue for it, but I don't know if it's actively being worked on. I wonder, like I'm like thinking out loud here, but I wonder if you know, it could actually ask, like, say, hey, listen, you know, you already got a content type. Do you want to use this content type, or do you want to create a new content type? You know, but the answer is I don't know.
I guess that's where agencies come in, isn't it? Like the experts, the people who've been using Drupal for a long time will be able to say, oh, you can't use this recipe, but that recipe doesn't work. But what recipes is trying to do, I guess, is reduce or lower the barrier to entry. We want people enthusiastic about Drupal who have never really ever dabbled with it. Me personally, I needed a CMS to create a website I was working on. I looked around. I think I looked at Joomla and Drupal and went, Drupal. That's the audience we want to bring in, don't we? The fresh blood. You know, the people are wandering away from Drupal Village.
Yeah, we do need the fresh blood. Or like if you go to a Drupal camp and DrupalCon right now, you can look at the average age is just, you know, older. Y'all are ancient, including me, and you know, like a lot of younger kids are going to you know, things like Sanity.io or you know, Astro's the new cool thing, or what's the other one that'll, you know, like a lot of the JavaScript based flat file generators and stuff like that are pretty popular, but they don't have a lot of the benefits that Drupal has, you know, and they also can be like more complex in ways too. I hope that recipes can work with each other. Like, you know, I look at the WordPress ecosystem, and WordPress has this issue because they don't have very robust APIs where you can have like an extension installed and it will totally break another extension. You know, that doesn't happen with Drupal. Drupal's, you know, between like the render API, the various APIs that Drupal has, like things tend to work together really, really good with Drupal. There's always exceptions, you know, but things tend to work really well together. And I hope that and I expect that to continue with recipes. If that does not happen with recipes, I'm going to be opening some issues and bitching at people, but we'll see what happens.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you for that. I got one more question.
Yeah.
When are we getting this stuff?
So if you go to Drupal Starshot, like there's this countdown at the top, or there, yeah, right here, 196 days, and I think that's basically to the end of the year. Left. All right. So Dries announced that he wants the initial version of Starshot to be available by the end of this year. Now, this is going to be the initial version. You know, there's going to be like Experience Builder is probably going to be very bare bones at this point. Recipes has been happening for a bit, so I'm hoping that Recipes is a bit more fleshed out. And the same with Project Browser and automatic updates. They have been, I don't know if y'all have been paying attention to those, but they have been happening for years and years. And like, honestly, like it seemed like for a long time, momentum was just kind of stalled on those. So I'm hoping it would be really nice to have those in, along with, like in my head, I would love to have a modern Drupal.org. I don't know if y'all know this, but Drupal.org is still running on Drupal 7. And like, it's honestly kind of a shame, but the Drupal Association doesn't have like a heck of a lot of resources, and so they're trying to figure out ways to fund this. So the answer to your question is first version by the end of the year, and at that point, incremental improvements. Another thing to note with Drupal CMS is it's not going to be tied to the Drupal core release cycle. So Drupal CMS will have more often releases, you know, and then just as you do that, it'll have it will be upgrading Drupal or updating, or it'll have the latest version of Drupal as you're using it. Yeah.
So just you raised an interesting point then. There's a deadline for stopping support for Drupal 7, which is I think January of next year. And you just mentioned that Drupal.org, the website is run on Drupal 7. So I think that may be a factor in encouraging it to move from Drupal 7 to Drupal 10, because we're not going to be able to support it anymore.
Yeah, and at that point, Drupal 11 will probably be out.
Yep. So that's good news.
Yeah. There's new designs for Drupal.org that have been like floating around for a while. I've seen like two different sets of designs at this point. And you know, this is obviously out of the scope of this, but like every time, like I know, like I'm kind of friends with Tim Doyle, the CEO of the Drupal Association, and I kind of every time I see him, I'm like, hey, what's up with the website, you know? But the fact is that like the Drupal Association only has like 4 or 5 engineers. A lot of them are spent, you know, number one, keeping Drupal.org working properly. You know, there's a lot of infrastructure stuff. A lot of them are also working on things like the GitLab integration. Like, you know, GitLab has been moving great, and it's been doing a lot of cool things with our GitLab integration. But at the same time, like I feel that like we just need to do a big old-fashioned website migration. We need to move all the stuff over. I think documentation. I've also been pushing the DA very hard on documentation. I think documentation doesn't necessarily need to be migrated. I think it needs to be rewritten. It needs to be rewritten by a full-time paid person. Because right now documentation is all over the place. There are some great pieces of documentation and there are some shit pieces of documentation. It's hard to find them. You know, it's hard to find what you're looking for. You know, you Google stuff and you still find stuff from Drupal 7. And, you know, I can filter that stuff out because I've been working with this for a while. But what if you're a new Drupal developer? What if you're a PHP or JavaScript developer coming into Drupal and you're looking at this article from Drupal 7 and you're like, all right, I'll try it. You know, it's not going to work. So I have lots of thoughts on this. It's a lot, but like I feel like things are starting to happen, and I'm hopeful.
Hey, Mike. I think that's all the questions we have. Is there anything else you wanted to mention?
Nope. Well, yeah, actually, you all need to come to Florida Drupal Camp. I'm an organizer. This is last year's website, but it's going to be in February in Orlando. There are direct flights between like London and Orlando. Y'all can come down. If you're coming all the way from London or from England, I will totally get you a free ticket. Just like reach out to me in Slack and come down and visit us. The weather's nice in Orlando that time of year. Well, I know it's not that nice up where y'all are. So that's it for me. I appreciate y'all listening. I'm excited about this type of stuff. So thank you.
Yeah, I hope you can endure the echo with the applause there, Mike. But thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us and for such a wonderful presentation. We really appreciate it.
Cool. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Take care.
Bye.